Welcome to World Information HD. In today's video, we're diving into the fascinating world of rare coins and uncovering the top 10 most valuable Lincoln pennies from the United States. These tiny copper treasures, hiding in pockets and drawers, have shocked collectors by selling for millions of dollars. Stay tuned as we reveal the stories, history, and unbelievable values behind these rarest pennies ever minted. In the world of American coins, there's one humble piece of copper that has captured the hearts of collectors for decades: the Lincoln Wheat Penny. Among the many years this classic coin was minted, the year 1956 holds a very special place. At first glance, the 1956 no-mint mark Lincoln Wheat cent may appear to be just another penny, the kind of coin you might have seen in change jars, desk drawers, or old coffee cans at your grandparents' house. Yet, hidden within its history and condition lies the possibility of surprising worth. Today, we're going to take a deep dive into the story, history, design, and true value of the 1956 no-mint mark wheat penny. To understand why the 1956 wheat penny is such an important coin, we must first revisit the origins of the Lincoln cent. Back in 1909, the United States Mint introduced the Lincoln penny to honor the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth. This was the first time in U.S. history that a president's portrait was placed on a circulating coin. Designed by Victor David Brenner, the coin featured Lincoln's bust on the obverse and two wheat stalks on the reverse. Collectors soon dubbed it the Wheat Penny, a nickname that stuck and is still widely used today. By the 1950s, the Lincoln Wheat Penny had already been in circulation for decades, and people were accustomed to its design. The obverse still displayed the dignified bust of Abraham Lincoln facing right, with the inscriptions, "In God We Trust," above, "Liberty," to the left, and the date on the right. On the reverse, the two wheat ears framed the inscriptions, 1 cent, and United States of America, along with the phrase, E pluribus unum. Even after years of circulation, this design carried a simple elegance, symbolizing Lincoln's enduring legacy and America's agricultural strength. The year 1956 itself was a period of post-war growth in the United States. Families were settling into suburban homes, automobiles were booming, and new technologies were reshaping everyday life. Against this backdrop, the U.S. Mint in Philadelphia produced millions of Lincoln Wheat pennies, including the no-mint mark variety that we are focusing on. Since Philadelphia was the main mint at the time, coins struck there often lacked a mint mark, which is why this particular penny does not bear one. Now, here's where things get fascinating. At first glance, most 1956 no-mint mark wheat pennies may seem ordinary. After all, with over 420 million produced, it's one of the more common dates in the wheat penny series. Yet, as every collector knows, not all coins are created equal. While most of these pennies circulated heavily, losing their shine and wearing down over time, a select few survived in exceptional condition. Some were saved straight from bank rolls, some from mint sets, and others just happened to avoid years of wear and circulation. These surviving examples, especially those in mint state condition, can command strong premiums from collectors today. One of the most important factors in determining the value of a 1956 wheat penny is its grade. Coin grading is a specialized process where experts evaluate a coin's condition using a scale from poor 1 all the way to mint state 70. A circulated penny from 1956 might only be worth a few cents to a few dollars, but if the coin is in mint state with full original red color, its value increases dramatically. Collectors often look for pennies that retain their vibrant red luster, sharp details, and minimal contact marks. The difference between a brown circulated cent and a fiery red uncirculated one can be staggering. But beyond condition, errors and varieties make this coin especially interesting. The 1950s were known for their share of minting mistakes, and the 1956 wheat penny is no exception. For example, collectors have found doubled die errors where parts of the design appear doubled, giving Lincoln's profile or the lettering a shadow-like effect. Other coins exhibit die cracks, repunched mint marks from the Denver issues, and even off-center strikes. These mistakes, while small, make the coin unique, turning an ordinary penny into a collector's treasure. The rarity and visibility of these errors often determine how much extra value they can bring. Another fascinating aspect of the 1956 wheat penny is its composition. Like earlier cents of the era, it was struck from a bronze alloy consisting of 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc. This gives it a warm reddish-brown appearance, but it also means that over time, the copper reacts with the environment, often darkening or toning in unique ways. Some coins acquire a rainbow-like patina, which collectors call toning. In certain cases, beautifully toned coins can be worth more because of their eye appeal. Collectors today often seek out full sets of wheat pennies, covering every year from 1909 to 1958, and the 1956 issue is a necessary piece of that puzzle. While common in lower grades, finding one in pristine condition with brilliant red color can be surprisingly challenging. Imagine owning a coin that has survived nearly 70 years without losing its sharpness or brilliance. It's like holding a piece of time preserved in metal. Another point of intrigue is the role this penny plays in bridging eras of U.S. coinage. The 1956 wheat penny came just 2 years before the end of the wheat design. In 1959, the reverse was changed to the Lincoln Memorial design in honor of Lincoln's 150th birthday. That means the 1956 wheat penny is among the final issues of the classic wheat-back design. Collectors value it as one of the last chances to own the traditional look before the new era began. So why should you care about the 1956 no-mint mark Lincoln Wheat Penny? Beyond its historical background and design, this coin teaches us something about how everyday objects can hold hidden worth. Millions of people used these pennies to buy candy, newspapers, or gasoline back in the 1950s, never realizing that decades later, the same coin could be worth much more to collectors. It's a reminder that history is not always locked in museums. It often circulates right in our pockets. If you happen to stumble across a 1956 wheat penny, the first thing to do is examine its condition. Look at the luster, check for sharp details, and notice the color. If it still has that brilliant red shine and minimal wear, it may be worth submitting to a grading service like PCGS or NGC. A certified grade can significantly increase its market value and make it more attractive to collectors. Also, keep an eye out for those minting errors we discussed earlier. Even small doubling on the lettering or numbers can make a big difference in value. Error coins are like hidden Easter eggs in the world of numismatics, and collectors are always eager to find them. For those who have inherited old coin collections from relatives, it's always worth checking for these wheat pennies. They were heavily saved by people in the 1950s and 1960s, which means they often turn up in collections passed down through generations. That old jar of pennies sitting in the attic could be more valuable than you think. The market for wheat pennies has grown steadily over the years, with collectors young and old appreciating their charm. Coin shows, auctions, and online marketplaces are filled with people seeking to complete their sets or upgrade to higher quality examples. And while the 1956 penny may not be the rarest of them all, it has an enduring appeal because of its history, beauty, and place in the series. Now, here's where it gets exciting. Among all the coins graded and sold, certain top-quality examples of the 1956 no-mint mark Lincoln Wheat Penny have achieved staggering prices at auction. While the majority may only fetch modest amounts, the absolute finest survivors, those flawless red gems preserved for decades, can bring in remarkable sums. The highest known sales of this coin have stunned collectors, reminding everyone that even the smallest denomination can carry immense value when rarity, condition, and demand align. And so, as we close our exploration of the 1956 no-mint mark Lincoln Wheat Penny, remember this: coins are not just currency. They are storytellers, carrying with them the weight of history, design, and culture. From Abraham Lincoln's profile to the symbolic wheat ears, every detail on this penny speaks to America's past. But more than that, they remind us that sometimes the most ordinary things in life can hold extraordinary secrets. So next time you're looking through your change, take a moment to notice the details. That penny you almost dismissed might just be part of an incredible story. And who knows? If you're lucky enough to find the right one, in the right condition, it could be worth as much as $32,837. Welcome back to World Information HD, where we explore fascinating stories behind some of the rarest and most valuable coins ever struck in the United States. Today, we dive into the world of a coin that might look ordinary at first glance, but within the realm of coin collecting, it carries both history and hidden treasure. We're talking about the 1941 Lincoln Wheat Penny with no mint mark, a simple copper cent that has captivated collectors for decades. You may even have one hiding in a drawer, jar, or family coin collection without realizing its significance. To understand why this coin is so fascinating, we need to step back in time to the early 1940s. The year was 1941. America was still reeling from the effects of the Great Depression, while the world was being consumed by the flames of the Second World War. Though the United States had not yet entered the war, the economy, industries, and even the smallest details of daily life were being influenced by the uncertainty of global conflict. And amidst all of this, millions upon millions of Lincoln Wheat Pennies were being minted. The Lincoln Wheat Penny itself had been introduced back in 1909, designed by Victor David Brenner, as a way to commemorate the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth. It was the very first U.S. coin to feature the portrait of a real historical person instead of symbols like liberty. The wheat stalks on the reverse represented strength and agriculture, values that were central to the American identity at the time. By the time 1941 came around, this design was already deeply ingrained in American culture. People recognized the coin immediately, not only as currency but as a small piece of national pride. Now, what makes the 1941 no-mint mark penny special? Unlike coins minted in Denver, marked with a small D, or coins from San Francisco, which carry an S, pennies minted in Philadelphia during this period bore no mint mark at all. The absence of a mint mark doesn't mean the coin is rare in itself, since Philadelphia was the main mint and produced a huge number of coins. In fact, over 887 million pennies rolled out of the Philadelphia Mint in 1941 alone. At first glance, this may make the coin seem common. After all, nearly 1 billion coins were made. So why would collectors pay so much attention to a coin that was produced in such massive quantities? The answer lies in the fascinating world of numismatics, the study and collection of coins. Collectors are not only interested in how many coins were made, but also in the small variations, the condition, and the historical context behind each piece. Even among hundreds of millions of coins, certain examples can stand out dramatically, commanding incredible prices. Let's talk about condition. In coin collecting, the state of preservation is everything. A penny that has been passed through thousands of hands over the decades, scratched, worn, and dulled, may only be worth a cent or two above face value. But a coin that has survived the years in pristine condition, showing every detail of Lincoln's face, the wheat stalks, and even the fine lines of the engraver's design, those coins are considered gems. Collectors call them mint state examples, and the grading scale used ranges from 1 for a heavily worn coin to 70 for an absolutely perfect specimen. It is these high-grade, near-perfect examples of the 1941 no-mint mark penny that can fetch enormous amounts at auction. Imagine finding a coin that has survived over 80 years without losing its shine, with no scratches or dents, as if it had just left the mint. For collectors, that's like discovering a time capsule from history. Another factor that excites collectors is the potential for errors. The 1941 series has some interesting error varieties, such as double dies, off-center strikes, and coins that show unusual marks due to mistakes during production. These errors make the coins unique, and in the world of collecting, uniqueness often equals value. While the majority of 1941 no-mint mark pennies are standard, those with errors can sometimes multiply in worth. Now, let's place ourselves in the shoes of someone living in 1941. A single penny could buy you a piece of candy, help pay for a newspaper, or add up towards small household purchases. Pennies were part of daily life, tossed into piggy banks, passed across counters, and collected in rolls. For the average person, it was just spare change. Nobody thought twice about saving them in pristine condition because they were so common. That's part of the reason why finding one today in top condition is so difficult. It required someone, at some point in history, to set it aside and preserve it before the wear and tear of circulation could take its toll. As the war years pressed on, the materials used in coins became an important issue. By 1943, the U.S. Mint had to conserve copper for the war effort, leading to the famous steel penny. But in 1941, copper was still the main ingredient, giving these pennies their rich reddish-brown color. Many of the surviving coins today have developed a patina, changing from their original brightness to deeper shades of brown. Collectors appreciate both the red versions that have retained their original shine and the brown versions that show their age with dignity. The 1941 penny without a mint mark tells more than just the story of currency. It tells the story of America itself at a turning point in history. The nation was on the brink of entering World War II. Industries were shifting, families were preparing for uncertainty, and yet daily life still included these simple coins exchanging hands. Every penny from that year is a small relic of that era, a silent witness to history. Today, collectors hunt for these coins not only for their beauty and rarity in high grades but also for the connection they provide to the past. Holding a well-preserved 1941 penny feels like holding a piece of history that has survived generations untouched. It is this blend of historical significance and rarity in pristine condition that drives collectors to pay astonishing prices. Think about it. Millions of people carry pennies in their pockets every day without giving them a second thought. They're often ignored, dropped on the ground, or left forgotten in jars. And yet, within the world of coin collecting, one seemingly ordinary penny can change hands for a sum that seems almost unbelievable. That is the magic of numismatics. It transforms the ordinary into the extraordinary. And here's where it gets truly fascinating for anyone watching this video. You may very well have a 1941 penny with no mint mark in your own possession. These coins are not impossible to find, and many families have jars or collections of old wheat pennies tucked away in attics, basements, or inherited boxes. While most will be worth a modest amount, there's always the chance that one could be in stunning condition, a hidden treasure waiting to be discovered. So, what should you look for if you suspect you have one of these coins? First, check for the mint mark. If there's no small d or s below the date, you've got a Philadelphia coin. Then, examine the condition. Is Lincoln's cheek smooth and worn, or can you see the details of his hair, jawline, and coat clearly? On the reverse, are the wheat stalks sharp and detailed, or are they faded? If the coin shines like new, with little to no wear, it may be worth far more than you expect. For the truly rare high-grade examples, professional grading by companies like PCGS or NGC can verify authenticity and condition, which often drives the value even higher. Throughout history, auctions have revealed just how much collectors are willing to pay for the best of the best. While average circulated coins may fetch a small premium, those rare, top-graded examples of the 1941 no-mint mark Lincoln Wheat Penny have shocked many by their auction prices. And this brings us to the number you've been waiting for, the remarkable value that one of these coins has reached in today's collector's market. A 1941 no-mint mark Lincoln Wheat Penny, in extraordinary mint state condition, has been sold for as much as $23,099. Have you ever held a penny in your hand and wondered if it could be worth more than just 1 cent? What if I told you that a coin sitting quietly in an old jar, in your drawer, or tucked away in a family album could be a hidden treasure worth thousands of dollars? Today, we're going to take a journey back in time, to the early 1940s, a time when the world was engulfed in war, when the United States was mobilizing resources on an unimaginable scale, and when something as small as a 1-cent coin carried stories of history, resilience, and even great value. This is the fascinating story of the 1942 Lincoln Wheat Penny, a coin that seems ordinary at first glance, yet has captured the imagination of collectors for decades. We'll uncover why this penny is special, the role it played during World War II, the different varieties that exist, and most importantly, how much it's really worth in today's market. So, let's dive in, because this story is far more exciting than you might think. To understand the importance of the 1942 penny, we need to rewind to the early 1940s. The United States had just entered World War II after the attack on Pearl Harbor in December 1941. Factories that once made cars were suddenly producing tanks, airplanes, and weapons. Resources like copper and tin were considered essential for the war effort. These metals weren't just used in ammunition, they were also critical for wiring, communications, and industrial equipment. Every ounce mattered. Now, pennies had always been made mostly of copper. But during this era, the government began to consider alternative materials. While the full transition to steel cents would only come in 1943, the planning was already underway in 1942. That means the 1942 D penny is one of the last traditional copper wheat pennies struck before this massive change. That fact alone makes it a fascinating piece of history. The D Mint mark tells us that this penny was produced at the Denver Mint. At the time, 3 major mints were producing Lincoln cents: Philadelphia, San Francisco, and Denver. Each mint had its own production numbers, and collectors pay close attention to these because certain mintages are much lower than others, which can directly affect value. In 1942, the Denver Mint struck hundreds of millions of wheat pennies. At first glance, that number might make you think these coins are common, and in many ways they are. If you find a circulated 1942 D penny today, it might only be worth a few cents to a couple of dollars depending on its condition. But here's where the story gets interesting. Condition, errors, and rarity within the batch can completely change the equation. Let's talk about condition first. Coin collectors, or numismatists as they are called, judge coins based on grading scales that range from good all the way up to mint state and proof. A coin that's been heavily used in circulation may be worn down, with Lincoln's face smoothed out and the wheat stalks on the reverse barely visible. But a coin that was struck, placed into storage, and never really used might retain its original shine, luster, and detail. These are the kinds of coins collectors dream of finding. Now, the 1942 D penny in pristine, mint condition is far from ordinary. These coins, when graded by professional services, can command jaw-dropping prices. In fact, the price tag of a high-grade example is enough to make anyone rethink the value of the pennies sitting in their pocket change jar right now. But it's not just about condition. Era coins also play a huge role. During the 1940s, the minting process wasn't as precise as it is today. Mistakes happened. Double die errors, off-center strikes, and repunched mint marks are just a few examples. A repunched mint mark, for instance, happens when the D in Denver was struck more than once in slightly different positions. These small variations create coins that stand out, and collectors love them. Imagine holding a penny where the mint mark looks slightly blurred or doubled. That tiny flaw could make it worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars. And this is why collectors scour coin rolls, old penny jars, and estate sales in hopes of stumbling upon one of these hidden treasures. Let's also talk about the design itself, because the Lincoln Wheat Penny is iconic. First introduced in 1909 to honor the centennial of Abraham Lincoln's birth, this design was revolutionary at the time. It was the first U.S. coin to feature a real person, and who better than the 16th president, a figure synonymous with unity and resilience. On the obverse, we see Lincoln's portrait, while the reverse showcases 2 wheat stalks encircling the words 1 cent. These wheat ears symbolize prosperity and growth, messages that resonated deeply during the war years. By 1942, the Lincoln Wheat Penny had already been in circulation for more than 3 decades, yet it remained beloved. People used these pennies in everyday transactions without giving them a second thought. But today, each surviving coin is like a time capsule, a direct link to the sacrifices and determination of that era. Collectors today prize the 1942 D penny not just for its monetary value but also for its story. Think about it. This was a coin that may have been used by a soldier's family to buy stamps for letters sent overseas. It could have been part of a child's allowance during wartime rationing. Or perhaps it sat in a drawer for decades, untouched, until someone realized its significance. Every coin has a journey, and the 1942 D carries with it the weight of history. So, how can you tell if you have a valuable one? First, look for the mint mark under the date. If you see a clear D beneath 1942, you know it came from Denver. Next, examine the condition. If it's worn, it may only be worth a modest amount, But if it still has its shine, sharp details, and no scratches, you could be holding something special. For those who suspect they might have an error variety, magnification is key. Checking closely for doubling, misalignment, or unusual marks can make all the difference. The next step is grading. Professional coin grading services like PCGS or NGC provide authentication and assign grades that collectors trust. A coin graded at mint state 65 or higher can see its value multiply many times over. This is where the true excitement lies, because the jump in price between a circulated penny and a high-grade example is staggering. And here's the part you've been waiting for: the value. While many 1942D pennies might sell for small amounts, the rarest and most pristine examples, especially those with unique qualities or errors, can reach prices that most people would never associate with a simple 1-cent coin. Believe it or not, one of these coins, in top condition, has been valued at $37,408. Yes, you heard that right. A penny that once bought a stick of gum or a piece of candy is now worth as much as a brand new car, a down payment on a house, or even a year's tuition at some universities. It's incredible to think about, and it perfectly illustrates why coin collecting continues to fascinate people across the world. So, the next time you're sifting through old coins, take a closer look. That 1942 wheat penny might just be more than pocket change. It could be a treasure, a piece of history, and maybe, just maybe, your ticket to a remarkable discovery. Have you ever wondered how something as small as a penny could hold a story worth more than gold? Today, we're diving into one of the most intriguing treasures of American coinage history, the 1942 no-mint mark Lincoln Wheat Penny. A tiny coin from the middle of World War II, a time when America was changing forever, yet this 1 cent still carries secrets, history, and value far beyond its face. So sit back, relax, and join me on this journey as we explore how a penny minted more than 80 years ago can still make collectors' hearts race. The story begins in the early 1940s, when the United States was caught between economic recovery from the Great Depression and the looming shadows of the Second World War. Coins were more than just money back then. They were symbols of stability in uncertain times. The Lincoln Wheat Penny, first struck in 1909 to honor the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth, had already become one of the most recognized coins in circulation. By 1942, the wheat penny design had been circulating for decades, featuring Lincoln's profile on the obverse and 2 stalks of wheat framing the words 1 cent on the reverse. But why is the 1942 penny without a mint mark so special? Let's first understand what the absence of a mint mark means. Coins struck at the main Philadelphia Mint often carried no mint mark at all. To most people, that might make these pennies seem common, but in the world of coin collecting, details like condition, rarity, and history create enormous value. And the 1942 penny, tied to the wartime economy, is a fascinating piece of history. Think about life in America during 1942. Factories were working overtime to produce tanks, airplanes, and war supplies. Materials like copper and nickel were in short supply, as they were desperately needed for the war effort. This scarcity would soon lead to changes in coin production, most famously in 1943 when pennies were made from steel coated in zinc instead of copper. But in 1942, pennies were still being struck primarily in copper, creating the last full year before that historic shift. This is part of what makes the 1942 no-mint mark Lincoln penny so appealing. It stands at the edge of change, capturing the end of an era. Collectors see it not just as a coin, but as a snapshot of history, a symbol of America in transition. Now, here's where the story gets even more interesting. The Philadelphia Mint struck hundreds of millions of pennies in 1942, so at first glance, you might assume that these coins are extremely common. And you'd be right, if we're talking about regular, well-worn examples that passed through the hands of soldiers, factory workers, and children buying candy during the war years. Those are plentiful, and you might even find one today in a jar of old coins from your grandparents' house. But rarity doesn't always mean low mintage. It often comes from condition and demand. For the 1942 Lincoln penny, the difference between a circulated example and a mint state, uncirculated gem can be staggering. Imagine a coin that has survived all these decades without scratches, wear, or damage, still shining as brightly as the day it left the mint presses in Philadelphia. Those are the coins that collectors dream of finding, and they're willing to pay incredible sums to add them to their collections. To truly appreciate the allure of this coin, let's talk about the details. On the obverse, Lincoln's portrait is sharp, with every strand of hair and every wrinkle in his coat visible. The words, "In God We Trust," stretch across the top, while "Liberty" stands proudly to the left. The date, 1942, anchors the design, free of any mint mark underneath, signaling its Philadelphia origin. On the reverse, the wheat stalks curve gracefully, a design created by Victor David Brenner that symbolizes America's agricultural strength. The motto, E pluribus unum, crowns the top, uniting the nation in a time of global conflict. But what transforms this coin from an everyday penny into a sought-after treasure is its condition, rarity among high grades, and the fascination collectors have with wartime coinage. Coins like the 1942 no-mint mark wheat penny represent more than just metal, they represent survival. How many of these coins were dropped in soda shops, used to pay for newspapers, or carried overseas by soldiers as tiny tokens of home? And how many survived untouched, preserved in rolls, tucked away in attics, or saved unknowingly by families who never guessed they were holding a future fortune? It's stories like these that keep the world of numismatics, the study and collection of coins, so exciting. Every penny has a tale to tell, and the 1942 wheat penny is no exception. Collectors often talk about eye appeal, the way a coin looks to the naked eye. For the 1942 penny, luster, strike, and toning all play a role in determining its value. A rich, red luster with no signs of wear can send prices soaring, while a dull, brown, circulated penny may only be worth face value. The market for coins like this has only grown over the years. Auctions frequently showcase rare examples of the 1942 wheat penny in pristine condition, sparking bidding wars among serious collectors. Some of these coins are encased in protective holders, graded by professional services like PCGS or NGC, which assign them designations such as MS65 or MS67, indicating their superb preservation. These grades can make all the difference, with values climbing exponentially as the grade increases. Another fascinating layer is how these coins fit into the larger timeline of American coinage. The transition to steel pennies in 1943 makes the 1942 copper issue stand out as the last, traditional, wartime penny. This adds historical importance and emotional resonance for collectors. It's not just a coin, it's a reminder of a country on the brink of global war, a last snapshot of normalcy before everything changed. So, what does this all mean for you? If you happen to stumble upon a 1942 no-mint mark Lincoln Wheat Penny, don't dismiss it as ordinary. Look closely. Examine the details. Is it worn and circulated, or does it still shine like new? Could it be one of those rare survivors that escaped decades of wear and now commands an incredible price at auction? Many collectors start their journeys with pennies, and it's coins like the 1942 wheat penny that keep their passion alive. It's easy to overlook something as small as a penny, but when you know the story behind it, you realize how much value it truly holds. A penny from 1942 isn't just copper, it's history, memory, and legacy rolled into one. It's a piece of America's past that still speaks today, and for some lucky collectors, it's also a pathway to unexpected wealth. And this brings us to the most exciting part, the value. While millions of 1942 no-mint mark wheat pennies were made, the very finest examples, preserved in mint condition, have sold for astonishing amounts. At auctions, these gems have commanded figures that leave people stunned. One particular example, shining with luster and preserved in breathtaking quality, was valued at an incredible $45,674. The story of the Lincoln Wheat Penny is one that has fascinated coin collectors for more than a century. Among all the pennies struck by the United States Mint, one of the most remarkable and widely discussed is the 1944 Denver Mint Wheat Penny. At first glance, this coin may appear to be nothing more than an ordinary piece of copper with Abraham Lincoln's profile stamped onto the front. But upon closer inspection, both history and rarity transform it into something extraordinary, an artifact with a hidden story and a surprising value that can astonish anyone who discovers it. Let us journey back to the 1940s. It was a time of uncertainty in the United States. The world was at war, with American forces engaged in battles across Europe and the Pacific. The American economy had shifted almost entirely to a war footing, producing tanks, airplanes, and ammunition in massive quantities. Precious metals like copper, nickel, and tin were suddenly in very short supply. Every resource was diverted to the war effort, and that included the metal needed for the humble penny. In 1943, the U.S. Mint made one of the most unusual decisions in its history. It temporarily stopped making pennies out of copper and instead struck them from zinc-coated steel. These steel pennies looked very different from the copper cents Americans were used to. They were lighter in weight, more silvery in color, and prone to rust if not properly cared for. For just 1 year, the nation's smallest denomination took on an entirely different appearance, marking a strange moment in the story of U.S. coinage. But in 1944, things changed again. As the war progressed and America's industrial capabilities expanded, the mint was able to return to using copper for the Lincoln cent. In fact, the copper used to mint the 1944 pennies was recycled from shell casings and other military equipment, giving these coins a symbolic connection to the war effort itself. Each penny struck that year was not only money, it was also a small piece of history forged from the materials of war. The Denver Mint, represented by the small D mint mark beneath the date on the coin, played a vital role in producing millions of these copper pennies in 1944. Though production numbers were high, not every penny was created equally. Tiny variations in the minting process, die errors, and striking irregularities resulted in some coins being slightly different from the rest. These differences, sometimes almost invisible to the untrained eye, would later become the key to their extraordinary value among collectors. To truly appreciate the 1944 Wheat penny, one must understand the artistry and symbolism behind the Lincoln cent itself. Designed by Victor David Brenner in 1909, the coin was the first U.S. cent to feature the image of a real historical figure. Abraham Lincoln, the 16th president, had guided the nation through its darkest hours, and his face was chosen to honor his legacy on the centennial of his birth. On the reverse side, the wheat stalks represented growth, prosperity, and the strength of America. For decades, this simple but elegant design graced billions of pennies, becoming one of the most recognized coins in the world. Collectors often say that every penny tells a story, and the 1944 Wheat penny tells a story of resilience. It connects us to a time when every American family contributed to the war effort, when even the smallest coin could carry patriotic meaning. Imagine a young soldier returning home in 1944, jingling a handful of change in his pocket that included one of these very pennies. Or picture a child buying candy with a copper cent, never realizing that decades later, that same coin could be worth a fortune to collectors. What makes the 1944 Denver Wheat penny so fascinating today is the combination of history, condition, and scarcity in certain varieties. While millions of these pennies were minted, only a fraction have survived in pristine, uncirculated condition. Most of the coins were spent, passed from hand to hand, worn down in pockets, purses, and cash registers. Finding one today with its original luster intact, free from scratches, and showing crisp details is like finding a time capsule from the past. But rarity does not come only from condition. Some of the 1944 pennies were struck using leftover steel planchets from the previous year. These rare steel cents of 1944 are among the most legendary coins in U.S. numismatics. Imagine the surprise of a collector who stumbles upon one, realizing that instead of copper, the coin is actually made of zinc-coated steel, a mistake that should not have happened in 1944. These rare transitional errors are highly coveted, with only a few known examples in existence. Even among the standard copper pennies, minor minting errors create excitement. A double die error, a repunched mint mark, or an off-center strike can dramatically increase a coin's desirability. Collectors are constantly on the lookout for such quirks, because they turn an ordinary coin into something extraordinary. For the 1944 D penny, these variations are what fuel the passion of hobbyists and investors alike. When discussing the value of a coin like this, several factors come into play. First, the coin's grade is essential. Professional grading services evaluate pennies based on wear, shine, and strike quality. A coin graded good may be worth only a small premium over face value, but one graded mint state with brilliant luster can be worth thousands of dollars. The scale ranges from 1 to 70, with 70 representing perfection. Collectors dream of finding a 1944 D penny in the higher grades, untouched by time. Second, the coin's provenance and demand influence its market price. A penny sold at a major auction, with certified authenticity and historical documentation, often fetches far more than one sold casually between collectors. The allure of owning such a coin is magnified by the competitive nature of numismatics, where passionate bidders drive prices upward in pursuit of rare treasures. Third, the unique story of the coin, its connection to World War II, its recycled copper origins, and its place in the long history of Lincoln cents, adds intangible but undeniable value. Collectors are not merely buying metal, they are buying history, mystery, and meaning. To hold a 1944 D penny is to hold a relic of an era defined by struggle and triumph. The fascination with the 1944 Denver Wheat Penny also ties into a broader trend in American coin collecting. In recent years, collectors have increasingly sought out coins from the mid-20th century, recognizing them as both affordable entry points and potential hidden gems. Stories of rare pennies selling for incredible sums inspire treasure hunters of all ages to dig through old jars, check pocket change, and search attics for forgotten collections. The dream of finding a rare coin fuels an entire community of enthusiasts. One cannot overlook the emotional pull of this hobby. For many, coin collecting is not just about money, it is about connecting with the past. A penny minted in 1944 could have been carried by a soldier, a factory worker, or a child living through wartime America. Each scratch, each mark, tells part of its journey. In this way, the 1944 D Wheat Penny is not only a collectible, it is a storyteller in copper. As the decades pass, fewer of these coins remain in circulation. Each year, collectors carefully preserve more of them, locking them away in albums, cases, and vaults. With every coin removed from circulation, the rarity of the survivors increases, and so does their value. For those fortunate enough to discover one in exceptional condition, the financial reward can be astonishing. The market for rare pennies has proven remarkably strong. While trends in collectibles rise and fall, coins retain a special place of stability and fascination. They are tangible, universally recognized, and historically significant. The 1944 Denver Wheat Penny embodies all of these traits, making it one of the most celebrated coins of its era. And so, the humble copper penny, often overlooked in daily life, becomes a symbol of hidden fortune. The next time you come across a jar of old coins, consider the possibility that one of them may not be ordinary at all. It may, in fact, be a 1944 D Wheat Penny with a story that bridges history, war, and the world of numismatics. Because in the grand world of coin collecting, even the smallest piece of change can carry a weight far greater than its face value. And for one of these extraordinary pennies, the worth can reach as high as $33,098. The Lincoln cent has always been more than just a coin. It is a piece of American history that fits into the palm of your hand. Millions of people pass pennies every day without even noticing the design, the date, or the small details that make them unique. But in the world of coin collecting, some of these tiny pieces of copper are worth not just a cent, but thousands of dollars. Today, we are going to take a deep dive into one of those coins, the 1946 no-mint mark Lincoln Wheat Penny. This is a coin that most people might dismiss as ordinary, yet in reality, it holds secrets, rarity, and value that could shock even casual collectors. To understand why the 1946 Wheat Penny matters, we have to rewind to the time when it was minted. America was in a unique place in history during the mid-1940s. World War II had ended in 1945, and the country was transitioning from wartime production back to a peacetime economy. The Lincoln cent had already played a role in the war years when the mint experimented with using different metals due to shortages. For example, in 1943 pennies were made from steel coated with zinc instead of copper, since copper was desperately needed for ammunition and military supplies. By 1944, the mint returned to using copper alloys, but these weren't exactly the same as before. From 1944 through 1946, the Lincoln Wheat Pennies were primarily struck from recycled shell casings collected after the war effort. That's right, many of the 1946 pennies we see today were actually made from the leftover brass shell casings gathered from military training grounds. That detail alone gives this coin a powerful historical connection. Imagine holding in your hand a penny that was forged from the remnants of ammunition used by American soldiers during one of the most significant conflicts in history. It's not just money, it's a story, a link to the past, and a reminder of sacrifice and resilience. When we look at the design of the 1946 Lincoln Wheat Penny, we see the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse, created by Victor David Brenner in 1909. This portrait has become one of the most enduring images on U.S. coinage. Around the top is the motto, "In God We Trust." To the left of Lincoln's profile is the word, "Liberty," and to the right is the date, 1946. The reverse displays the iconic wheat stalks on either side, framing the words 1 cent and United States of America. Above this sits the Latin phrase, E pluribus unum, meaning, out of many, one. Now here's where collectors start paying attention, the mint mark. On Lincoln Wheat Pennies, the mint mark, if present, is found just below the date on the obverse. If you see a D, it was struck in Denver. If you see an S, it was struck in San Francisco. But if there's no mint mark at all, that means the coin was produced in Philadelphia. The Philadelphia Mint was the primary source of 1946 pennies, and it struck them in massive numbers, over 991 million examples. With such a large mintage, one might assume these coins would have no special value. But that's where condition, rarity of survival, and historical context play a major role. A typical 1946 penny with heavy wear may only be worth a few cents to $1. But when you find one in pristine condition, especially in higher mint state grades, the value can rise dramatically. Collectors look for strong strikes, clean surfaces, and original luster. Because so many of these pennies circulated heavily during the booming post-war economy, very few remain in top condition today. Those that survived untouched have become treasures in the coin world. Another factor that adds intrigue to the 1946 penny is the metal composition. Though most were struck from the recycled shell casings, there are always mysteries in coinage. Small differences in alloy mixture, striking quality, or even accidental variations sometimes create highly collectible errors. Some collectors hunt for double dies, repunched mint marks, or coins struck off-center. While the 1946 no mint mark penny doesn't have a famously dramatic error associated with it like other dates, it still captures the imagination because of its connection to a time when America was rebuilding itself after war. Let's imagine for a moment how a penny from 1946 might have lived its life. It could have been handed to a child buying candy at a corner store. It might have been tossed into a soda machine, dropped into a piggy bank, or saved in a glass jar by a family looking toward the future. Some may have traveled thousands of miles in the pockets of veterans returning home, carrying memories of war and hope for peace. Over decades, many of these pennies wore down, scratched, and lost their shine. Yet a select few were preserved, maybe forgotten in a collection or stored away in mint rolls, waiting for the day collectors would rediscover them. The coin market has shown us time and time again that what seems common can become rare when condition and demand collide. And this is exactly the case with the 1946 no mint mark Lincoln cent. Collectors today are fascinated by the post-war years of American coinage, and the fact that these coins connect so directly to that period makes them desirable. Grading companies such as PCGS and NGC play an important role in determining value. A penny graded at a low level, such as good or fine, may not fetch much more than pocket change. But a coin graded mint state 65 or higher, with strong red luster and little to no wear, can command thousands of dollars at auction. These coins are not just pieces of metal, they are certified time capsules, carefully preserved for collectors who value both history and rarity. When you consider the cultural backdrop of 1946, it becomes even clearer why coins from this year capture attention. The United States was experiencing an economic boom, soldiers were returning home, families were being reunited, and optimism filled the air. Yet, within all this change, small everyday objects like pennies were quietly circulating, carrying the story of the times. Collectors often say that coin collecting is like holding history in your hands, and the 1946 wheat penny is a perfect example of that. It embodies not only the artistry of American coin design but also the resilience of a nation. Each coin carries traces of where it has been, who may have touched it, and the era from which it came. For modern collectors or even casual hobbyists, finding a 1946 wheat penny can be a thrill. While many are worth only a small amount, the potential for discovering one in pristine condition keeps people searching through jars of coins, old piggy banks, and inherited collections. The excitement lies in the possibility, because you never know when an ordinary-looking coin could turn out to be something extraordinary. It's worth noting that the legacy of Lincoln Wheat Pennies continues to this day. They were minted from 1909 to 1958, and over that time, countless varieties and rarities have emerged, making them one of the most beloved series among collectors. The 1946 penny fits into this story as a symbol of post-war America and as a coin that bridges the past with the present. So, if you ever come across a 1946 Lincoln Wheat penny with no mint mark, don't just toss it aside. Take a closer look. Examine its surfaces, its color, and its shine. You might be holding a piece of history more valuable than you realize. And here is the most fascinating part for those who love numbers and rarity. In top-graded condition, the 1946 no-mint mark Lincoln Wheat penny has been valued at an incredible $45,837. Welcome back to World Information HD, where knowledge meets discovery and every video uncovers something fascinating from the world around us. Today, we're diving deep into the story of a very special coin, one that might be hiding in your pocket change, an old coin jar, or maybe even in your grandparents' collection. We're talking about the United States of America 1950 no-mint mark Lincoln 1-cent wheat penny, a coin that many collectors dream of finding. At first glance, it looks like an ordinary penny, the kind you've probably spent countless times at the store without giving a second thought. But hidden beneath its copper surface lies a story filled with history, rarity, and value. This is not just a piece of currency, it's a living artifact, representing a moment in American history and a potential treasure for those who recognize its significance. To understand why this penny matters so much, we first need to look at the year 1950. America was in the post-war boom. The Second World War had ended just 5 years earlier, and the nation was entering an era of optimism, growth, and change. Families were moving into new suburban homes, cars were rolling off assembly lines, and industries were thriving. Yet, while these big historical shifts were happening, tiny details of everyday life, like the coins people carried, were quietly shaping the story of the nation. The Lincoln Wheat Penny, which had been introduced in 1909 to celebrate the centennial of Abraham Lincoln's birth, was already a familiar sight in pockets across America by 1950. Designed by Victor David Brenner, the obverse side of the coin carried the iconic portrait of President Lincoln, with the words, "In God We Trust," above, "Liberty," to the left, and the date stamped clearly to the right. On the reverse side were two simple but powerful wheat stalks, flanking the words 1 cent and United States of America, with the motto, E Pluribus Unum, above. This design, though straightforward, became one of the most beloved in U.S. coinage. The wheat penny is instantly recognizable, and for many, it carries a wave of nostalgia. By 1950, the wheat penny had been in circulation for over 40 years, but collectors and historians alike began to notice that certain dates and mint marks held far more value than others. So, what makes the 1950 no-mint mark Lincoln Wheat Penny so remarkable? The answer begins with understanding the minting process. The United States has multiple mints that produce coins, including those in Denver, San Francisco, and Philadelphia. The Philadelphia Mint, however, traditionally did not use a mint mark on its coins during that period. This means that if you have a 1950 Lincoln Wheat Penny with no mint mark, it was produced in Philadelphia. Now, Philadelphia produced a very large number of coins in 1950. Over 272 million wheat pennies came out of the Philadelphia Mint that year. So, one might think, if so many were made, how could one be worth anything today? That's where condition, rarity of surviving specimens, and collector demand come into play. Think about it this way: millions may have been struck, but how many survived the test of time in pristine condition? Most pennies circulated heavily, wearing down the fine details of Lincoln's portrait and the wheat stalks on the reverse. Others were damaged, corroded, or lost forever. That's why collectors today hunt for those few examples that survived in exceptional condition: bright red or red-brown surfaces with sharp details and minimal wear. For a coin like the 1950 no-mint mark wheat penny, the difference between a coin worth just a few cents and a coin worth thousands can come down to condition. A heavily worn example might only fetch a few dollars at best, while a coin preserved in mint state, with no scratches, full luster, and sharp details, can reach astonishing values at auction. This leads us to the fascinating world of coin grading. Every serious collector knows the importance of grading systems like those from the Professional Coin Grading Service, PCGS, or the Numismatic Guarantee Company, NGC. Coins are graded on a scale from 1 to 70, with 70 being a perfect, flawless coin. A 1950 no-mint mark wheat penny graded at the top of this scale is not just rare, it's a treasure. Imagine holding a coin in your hand that's over 70 years old, yet looks like it just came off the press yesterday. The details on Lincoln's coat, the fine lines in his hair, and the crisp edges of the wheat stalks on the back, all untouched by time. That's the kind of rarity collectors will pay handsomely for. Another reason collectors seek out this coin is its historical connection. The wheat penny series itself ended in 1958, when the U.S. Mint introduced the Lincoln Memorial design in 1959. That means every wheat penny carries with it a piece of numismatic history that can never be recreated. The 1950 penny sits near the end of the wheat cent era, giving it a special place in the hearts of those who cherish these coins. But the story doesn't stop there. In the world of numismatics, it's not just about age, it's about survival, uniqueness, and demand. Coins like the 1950 no-mint mark wheat penny become valuable because collectors recognize them as part of the bigger story of America. Each coin is like a time capsule, whispering tales of the past. Perhaps your coin once jingled in the pockets of a soldier returning from war, a mother buying groceries in the 1950s, or a child saving pennies in a jar for their first toy. These stories, though invisible, add emotional value to the financial worth of the coin. So, if you're lucky enough to come across a 1950 no-mint mark wheat penny, what should you do? First, examine its condition. Does it still have its original copper-red shine? Are the details sharp and clear? Or has time worn it down? If the coin looks promising, consider having it professionally graded and certified. This not only verifies its authenticity but also gives it a market-recognized value, making it far more appealing to buyers. Collectors and investors alike know that rare coins can be more than just a hobby, they can be an investment. Over the years, certain coins have skyrocketed in value, turning small finds into life-changing fortunes. And while not every penny will make you rich, coins like the 1950 no-mint mark wheat penny in superb condition certainly have the potential to surprise you. Auctions across the United States have shown just how much demand there is for these treasures. Collectors compete fiercely for the best examples, driving prices higher and higher. It's a testament to how something so small can capture so much attention and admiration. Now, let's paint a picture. Imagine you're sorting through an old jar of coins, maybe something you inherited or stumbled upon at a garage sale. Among the dull, worn pennies, you notice one with the date 1950. You turn it over, no mint mark. At first, you shrug. But then you remember hearing that some coins from this era can be valuable. You take a closer look. The details are crisp, the luster is still glowing. Suddenly, what seemed like an ordinary penny transforms into something extraordinary. That's the magic of coin collecting. It's a treasure hunt hiding in plain sight. The 1950 no-mint mark Lincoln Wheat Penny reminds us that even the smallest things can hold great value. It's not just about copper and engraving, it's about history, rarity, and the joy of discovery. Every coin has a story, but only a few have the power to change someone's life. And here's where it all comes together. While millions of these coins were minted, only a tiny fraction have survived in truly remarkable condition. That rarity, combined with the love collectors have for wheat pennies, is what gives this coin its incredible worth. It stands as a shining example of how something we often overlook can be one of the most prized treasures in the numismatic world. So, the next time you see an old penny, take a second look. It could be the very coin that connects you to history, and perhaps to a surprising fortune. Because, believe it or not, a 1950 no-mint mark Lincoln 1-cent wheat penny in top condition has been valued at $38,466. The Lincoln Wheat Penny is one of the most iconic and beloved coins ever produced in the United States, and among them, certain dates and mint marks carry stories that go far beyond their simple copper composition. Today, we turn our attention to a coin from the mid-20th century, one that came out of the Denver Mint at a time when America was experiencing post-war prosperity, cultural shifts, and new beginnings. That coin is the 1954 Lincoln Wheat Cent. At first glance, it may appear like just another ordinary penny that could have easily slipped through the hands of millions of Americans buying candy, newspapers, or gasoline. Yet, upon closer examination, it becomes clear that this piece of copper history holds secrets of rarity, value, and intrigue that continue to fascinate collectors even today. The story of the 1954 penny begins with its origins. By 1954, the wheat cent design had already been in circulation for over 4 decades, having first been introduced in 1909 to honor the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth. The obverse features the familiar bust of Lincoln, a work of art by Victor David Brenner, while the reverse showcases 2 wheat stalks framing the words, 1 cent. This design quickly became a symbol of American resilience and simplicity, circulating heavily during both World Wars and the Great Depression. By the time we reached the 1950s, the wheat cent was deeply embedded in the fabric of American life. The Denver Mint, indicated by the small D mint mark just below the date, was responsible for striking a massive number of pennies that year. In fact, the mintage for the 1954 penny was over 251 million coins. With a number that large, it would be easy to assume that these coins would never be worth more than face value. But as every experienced collector knows, the true value of a coin does not lie simply in how many were minted. Instead, condition, rarity of surviving high-grade examples, striking errors, and historical significance all play crucial roles in determining whether a penny is just pocket change or a collectible treasure. To understand the allure of the 1954 penny, we need to look at the era in which it circulated. The United States in 1954 was a nation in transition. The economy was booming, the baby boom generation was growing, suburban neighborhoods were expanding, and popular culture was rapidly changing with the rise of rock and roll. At the same time, coins were being used daily in virtually every transaction. Unlike today, when digital transactions dominate, coins and bills were the primary medium of exchange. Every 1954 penny would have traveled through countless hands, perhaps buying a soda at a diner, paying for a newspaper reporting on President Eisenhower, or slipping into the pocket of a child saving up for their first baseball cards. Because they circulated so widely, most 1954 pennies you might find today are heavily worn. Their surfaces are dull, the fine details in Lincoln's hair are flattened, and the wheat stalks on the reverse have lost their sharp definition. For these coins, the value typically remains close to face value, perhaps a few cents at most for casual collectors. But what sets certain examples apart is their preservation. Coins that were set aside early, perhaps in bank rolls or coin albums, retained their luster and detail. These high-grade, uncirculated examples are where the story becomes interesting. Collectors place great emphasis on condition, and this is reflected in the coin grading system. A 1954 penny in circulated condition may be worth little more than a common cent, but when graded at mint state levels, especially MS-65 and above, the value increases dramatically. In particular, coins that display brilliant red luster, designated as red in grading terminology, are highly prized. Copper coins are prone to toning and discoloration over time, often turning brown or dull. A coin that remains red, fresh, and vibrant is considered a true gem. Another layer of fascination comes from minting errors. The Denver Mint, while efficient, was not immune to mechanical mishaps. As a result, certain error varieties of the 1954D penny exist. Some of the most intriguing include doubled dies, repunched mint marks, and off-center strikes. For example, a repunched mint mark occurs when the D was stamped more than once in slightly different positions, creating a doubled appearance. These varieties are particularly appealing to error collectors who seek the unusual and the rare. But the true magic of the 1954D penny lies not only in its condition and errors but in its ability to tell a story of American numismatics. Collectors who pursue wheat cents often begin with the challenge of completing a set from 1909 through 1958. The 1954D is an essential part of that journey, representing the post-war years and the approaching end of the wheat cent design. Just 4 years later, in 1958, the reverse design would be changed to the Lincoln Memorial, signaling the end of an era. Thus, the 1954D holds historical importance as one of the later issues in the beloved Wheat series. It is also worth noting that the coin market is driven not only by rarity but also by demand. Lincoln cents are among the most collected coins in America, largely because of their accessibility. Children and beginner collectors often start with pennies because they are inexpensive and easy to find. Over time, this early exposure creates lifelong collectors who eventually seek out the higher grade and rarer examples of coins they once handled as kids. This demand keeps prices strong for high-quality wheat pennies, including the 1954-D. To give perspective on the range of values, let's consider some scenarios. A well-worn 1954D penny found in circulation today might fetch only a few cents from a dealer or collector. However, an uncirculated piece with sharp details and original red luster can command significantly more. In fact, certain superb gem examples certified by top grading companies have crossed auction blocks and stunned collectors with their impressive final bids. Imagine holding a coin that was struck over 70 years ago, a coin that looks as though it left the mint yesterday, its copper surface gleaming with fiery brilliance. Such pieces are exceptionally scarce because copper is a reactive metal that tarnishes easily. It takes great care, or sheer luck, for a penny to survive decades without losing its original brilliance. That is why collectors are willing to pay thousands of dollars for these coins in pristine grades. The journey of the 1954D penny from everyday pocket change to a numismatic prize is a reminder that history often hides in plain sight. Many people unknowingly pass over these coins, not realizing their potential worth. Coin collecting teaches us to slow down, to look carefully at the details, and to appreciate the artistry and stories behind the money we use daily. The simple act of examining a penny can reveal doubled lettering, a repunched mint mark, or an unusually sharp strike that transforms it from ordinary to extraordinary. As more collectors enter the hobby, the demand for these high-grade Lincoln cents continues to grow. While millions of 1954D pennies were minted, only a fraction remain in the kinds of conditions that serious collectors desire. This scarcity, coupled with enduring demand, ensures that the 1954D Lincoln Wheat cent will always occupy a special place in the world of coin collecting. And now, we arrive at the most fascinating part: the highest values these coins can reach. Over the years, certain premium examples have shocked the collecting community when they appeared at auctions. These were not just coins pulled from circulation but carefully preserved gems, blazing red in color, with flawless surfaces and exceptional eye appeal. For such a coin, the market has shown just how high collectors are willing to go. The most valuable 1954D Lincoln Wheat penny has been sold for an astounding $35,000. In the vast and fascinating history of American coinage, there are certain pieces that stand out as more than just money. They become treasures, stories of the past stamped forever in metal, tokens of both history and mystery. One such coin is the Lincoln Wheat cent, minted in the mid-20th century. These small copper coins, once exchanged casually for a piece of candy or a newspaper, today capture the imagination of collectors and treasure hunters alike. And when it comes to the rare issues of the 1950s, one year and mint mark carries an allure that continues to captivate experts and enthusiasts. The 1955 Denver Mint Wheat Penny. At first glance, the 1955 D Lincoln cent may appear to be just another old copper penny. Its color ranges from reddish brown to deep chocolate brown depending on how it has been preserved. On the obverse, the familiar profile of Abraham Lincoln stares resolutely to the right, designed by Victor David Brenner back in 1909 to honor the centennial of Lincoln's birth. Above Lincoln's head lies the motto, "In God We Trust." To the left is the word, "Liberty," while to the right is the date, 1955, marked with a small d just below it, signaling the coin was struck at the Denver Mint. On the reverse side, two stalks of wheat curl gracefully along the edges, framing the words 1 cent and United States of America, along with the Latin phrase, E pluribus unum. The wheat cent series ran from 1909 until 1958, after which the familiar Lincoln Memorial reverse design took its place. But during those nearly 50 years, countless varieties, errors, and unique minting quirks emerged. Collectors know that not every penny is equal. Some are common, circulated by the billions, while others carry within them a story of rarity, demand, and unexpected fortune. The 1955 Denver Mint penny sits in an intriguing position. It was a high mintage coin, with over 563 million struck, yet within this massive production, variations and rare conditions have created specimens worth far beyond their humble face value. To understand why the 1955 D penny is so interesting, we must step back into the history of the 1950s United States. This was a decade of post-war growth, optimism, and technological advancement. In 1955, Dwight D. Eisenhower was president, Rosa Parks sparked the Montgomery bus boycott, and Elvis Presley's music was rising to fame. Pennies, though small in denomination, circulated everywhere in daily American life. Children clutched them to buy bubblegum, adults used them for bus fares, and shopkeepers counted them late at night. Yet, while they served an ordinary purpose in the economy, the very year of 1955 brought about a fascinating chapter in the world of coin collecting. Most collectors immediately think of the famous 1955 Philadelphia double die cent when they hear 1955 penny. That particular coin, with its dramatic doubled inscriptions, is one of the most legendary era coins in U.S. history. But the Denver issue of the same year has its own role in the narrative. Though it does not bear the famous double die mistake, it was minted in huge numbers, creating the possibility for small variations, die states, and minting quirks to surface. Over time, collectors began to search for specific examples in pristine condition, coins that somehow survived the rigors of circulation for decades, remaining sharp, lustrous, and nearly flawless. This is where rarity enters the picture. While hundreds of millions of 1955 D pennies were struck, the vast majority ended up worn, scratched, or otherwise damaged through everyday use. Few people in the 1950s saved rolls of brand new pennies, thinking they might one day be worth more than their denomination. As a result, uncirculated examples became scarcer with each passing year. And in the numismatic world, condition is king. Imagine holding in your hand a coin that has endured 70 years yet still looks as if it just rolled off the press. The shine of the copper, the crisp definition of Lincoln's hair and jacket, the full wheat stalks on the reverse, such details set apart a collector's treasure from a common pocket change find. Professional grading services such as PCGS and NGC evaluate these coins under magnification, awarding grades on a scale from 1 to 70. A coin with a grade of MS 65 or higher, meaning mint state, nearly perfect, can command incredible prices at auction. And the 1955 D Lincoln cent has proven itself in this regard. Another factor that makes this coin attractive is its place in the overall wheat penny series. Collectors often seek to complete entire runs of Lincoln cents from 1909 to 1958. This means they need not just the famous rarities like the 1909 SVDB or the 1914 D, but also the less famous dates like the 1955 D. When millions of collectors worldwide pursue complete collections, even the less special dates rise in demand, especially when only a tiny percentage remain in gem condition. This creates a competitive market where pristine examples can skyrocket in value. The Denver Mint itself adds another layer of intrigue. Located in Colorado, the Denver Mint has produced U.S. coinage since 1906. In the mid-20th century, it was responsible for striking millions of coins each year to meet the growing needs of the economy. Despite its advanced machinery for the time, errors and variations occasionally slipped through. With the 1955 Denver cent, there are minor varieties, such as repunched mint marks, where the D appears doubled or misaligned due to manual adjustments made during the die preparation process. Collectors prize these varieties, adding to the overall mystique and desirability of the year. For those outside the world of coin collecting, the idea of a single penny being valuable might seem strange. After all, it is the lowest denomination of American currency, barely enough to buy anything in modern times. Yet, the value of coins lies not just in their metal content or purchasing power, but in the stories they tell, the rarity they embody, and the passion of the people who collect them. A coin like the 1955 D wheat cent connects us to a moment in history, to the people who once used it, and to the larger tradition of numismatics stretching back centuries. Consider the journey of one such coin. Minted in Denver, it may have traveled in a child's pocket to a candy store, jingled in a soldier's coin purse, or sat for decades in a forgotten jar in someone's attic. Over time, most of its siblings were spent, discarded, or worn beyond recognition. But one or two were spared by chance, saved in a collection, overlooked in a desk drawer, or discovered decades later in uncirculated rolls. When such a specimen emerges and is certified at a top grade, collectors recognize its rarity and bid fiercely to own a piece of numismatic history. Today, coin enthusiasts scour flea markets, estate sales, and even their own change jars in hopes of uncovering treasures like the 1955 D wheat penny in mint condition. While many examples remain common in circulated grades, the chase for the near-perfect coin keeps the excitement alive. Auction houses continue to see spirited competition when a truly stunning specimen appears. The beauty of coin collecting lies in this blend of history, rarity, and human fascination. A small copper piece no larger than a thumbnail can tell us about an entire era, about the artistry of its design, about the minting technology of its time, and about the quirks of chance that make one coin valuable while another remains ordinary. The 1955 Denver Wheat Penny embodies all of this, a common coin made rare, an everyday object transformed into a prize, and a reminder that sometimes the smallest things hold the greatest stories. And so, when collectors speak of the great wheat cents, the 1955 D deserves its place among them. It is not merely a penny. It is a symbol of the unexpected fortunes that numismatics can offer, a token of the dedication that collectors pour into their passion, and a living piece of American history. Perhaps you are wondering just how valuable such a coin can be. The answer depends on condition, rarity of the specific variety, and the ever-changing market of collectors. But make no mistake, while the vast majority of 1955 D pennies are worth little more than face value, a pristine example, preserved in stunning condition, has been recorded to sell for as much as $49,266.